Welcome to this deep dive where we take compelling ideas and explore them in depth. Today we're tuning into the quantum vibration of the day. It's a concept from Vincent drawing from his Spanish podcast, Tiempo y Atención.
Right.
Basically, we're looking at how small, simple acts,
Yeah.
just bringing awareness into daily life, how they can lead to these significant shifts.
Those quantum shifts he talks about.
Exactly. So our mission here is really to grasp how profound change might emerge from these subtle, everyday moments.
Yeah, and what's fascinating right from the start, Crown's emphasis, he talks about cultivating a conscious awareness of, well, the very first inspiration of your day.
The first breath in.
Yeah, or just that initial feeling. And it's not just about formal meditation, though that can be part of it. He's really talking about extending that mindful presence to everything you do.
Okay.
Starting with waking up, noticing your initial state. And for you, our listener, if you're keen on gaining knowledge quickly but thoroughly, this focus, this initial awareness, it's really a foundational step.
A starting point.
It's about establishing a deliberate connection with your experience, moment to moment.
Okay, so being really present right from the get-go. Crown then suggests following that initial inward movement, like your breath or maybe even the start of a thought until it just naturally stops.
Right.
And here's where it gets interesting, I think. He introduces this idea of a zone of emptiness.
Yes. That space between thoughts or, between the inhale and the exhale.
It seems a bit counterintuitive, focusing on the nothing in between.
Well, yes, but that's precisely where he's directing our attention.
Okay.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this zone of emptiness is presented as really a crucial space. It's for deepening both our attention and our consciousness.
Moving beyond just the surface.
Exactly. It's about moving past the surface level of what we perceive. Think of it like this. You might quickly read a summary, sure, but the real aha moments, those deeper insights you might be looking for, they often emerge when you pause, reflect, consider the space between the ideas.
Like the silence that makes music work.
Precisely. That's a great analogy. It's the silence that allows the music to truly resonate.
So it's within that pause, that brief moment of stillness, that something new can actually arise. Crown then talks about paying close attention to the instant just before the outward movement.
The exhale or the next thought popping up.
Right. He highlights this meeting point where inspiration ends and expiration begins, or where one thought stops and another starts.
Yeah, and he even suggests this point. Well, it isn't a physical dimension in the usual sense. It's more like a specific locus.
Its specific spot.
Maybe even linked to subtle shifts within our nervous system, perhaps. It's like a subtle internal shift you might sense, even if we don't have, a precise scientific label for it just yet.
That does raise interesting questions about consciousness in the body.
It really does. But regardless of the exact biological mechanism, the core idea is that by consciously focusing our attention right there, on that transitional point,
we might shift our awareness.
We might be able to move beyond our usual patterns, yeah. He describes this as potentially leading to a nameless empty point. He calls it an open window.
An open window. Interesting. Finding stillness beyond the constant mental chatter.
That's the idea.
Now, this could sound quite theoretical, quite abstract.
It could.
But Crown then shows how we can bring this into everyday life. He talks about applying this awareness of the void, even in just a conversation.
Right. He points out that moment right after a complete, sincere expression, that moment of silence. He says it really deserves our attention.
I think I know what he means.
It's fascinating how he bridges these seemingly abstract ideas with our practical daily experiences, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think about a time you've had a truly meaningful conversation. Or maybe you saw something incredibly beautiful or heard music that just moved you.
Often there's a pause afterward.
Exactly, a moment of spontaneous silence. Crown suggests we see these moments as opportunities. Opportunities to tap into what he calls the enormous quantity of holes in our phenomenological world.
Okay, that's quite a phrase.
It is. But essentially, it means the gaps, the pauses within our experience of reality. It's about recognizing and appreciating these natural pauses in our daily lives.
It feels like we're so conditioned to focus on the action, the sound, the movement,
that we miss the stillness underneath it all?
Yeah. We completely overlook it. Crown addresses this directly, doesn't he?
He does. He says we tend to only pay attention to what's moving or active, but the significance of that movement, he argues, actually originates from that foundational silence, that emptiness.
So the action comes from the stillness.
In a way, yes. And if we connect this back to, say, your interest in understanding things from multiple angles.
Right.
Considering this idea of an underlying silence encourages us to look beyond just the surface. He suggests contemplating things objectively to perceive this void, this silence, that supports all movement, all life.
He uses that example of a sincere interaction, too.
Yes, where a moment of real mutual understanding can create this tangible sense of silence between people. You can almost feel it.
Palpable, yeah. So it's not just noticing the quiet around us.
No, it's also about cultivating that inner stillness within ourselves.
And Crayon describes different kinds or maybe layers of silence.
He does. He talks about silence in the mind, silence in the chest or heart area, silence in the body itself, even a sense of silence above and surrounding us, and finally, a silence that penetrates and fills us entirely.
It sounds like a really multi-layered way of experiencing quietude.
It is. And for you, the listener, seeking perhaps a thorough understanding, this breakdown, it highlights that silence isn't just one single thing.
It's something experienced on multiple levels within us.
Exactly.
Now, for someone just starting out with this, achieving all these levels might feel a bit daunting.
A bit overwhelming, yeah. But Crown offers a gradual approach, step by step.
Okay, how does that start?
He suggests beginning by reducing the external stimuli, cutting back the noise in our environment to only what's truly essential. He actually emphasizes this, saying, let me get Spanish right. Así, pues la primera misión es tratar de reducir los estímulos externos a aquellos que son imprescindibles.
So the first mission is to try to reduce external stimuli to those which are indispensable.
Exactly. A crucial starting point, especially today, right? We're constantly bombarded.
True. Information overload.
So this first step is about being more intentional about what we let into our awareness. After that, he talks about cultivating a silence of external words.
Meaning, speaking less. Or speaking differently.
Being more deliberate, more meaningful in how we speak, less chatter, more intention.
That makes a lot of sense. How often do we just talk out of habit?
He's challenging us to ensure what we say has real intention behind it. And from there, he moves to cultivating a silence of internal words.
Ah, the inner monologue. Quieting that constant mental chatter.
Yes, which really resonates, I think, for anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by their own thoughts.
Definitely. If you want to avoid that feeling of being overloaded, quieting the inner monologue sounds key.
It is, creating internal space for clarity. Next, he tackles silence in our emotions.
How does that work?
He explains that emotions are often automatic responses, reactions to triggers, both external and internal. So by being more mindful of those triggers and reducing the unnecessary external noise,
Emotional silence can follow more naturally.
that's the idea. Then he discusses silence in feelings, and this is an interesting distinction he makes.
How so?
He clarifies this silence isn't about achieving some heightened emotional state, even a really positive one.
It's not about bliss or euphoria.
No, it's about moving beyond the phenomenal, beyond those constantly changing emotional experiences. It's just silence.
The kind of detachment from the emotional ebb and flow.
Yes, exactly. And finally, he talks about reaching a silence in our sensations. He notes this is often the deepest level of inner stillness we can experience.
Sensations, like
Yep.
physical feelings in the body.
And it's fascinating the order he presents these steps in, moving from the outside world inward, from thoughts to feelings, and ultimately to that fundamental level of sensations.
He uses that example of being ill, doesn't he?
Yes, having a fever,
Ah.
how our usually powerful thoughts can just fade away when we're physically unwell.
It really highlights how fundamental those sensations are. It gives you a different perspective.
It does, and it really underscores the logic behind his step-by-step approach. He's also clear that this pursuit of silence, it isn't meant to be some permanent state you just achieve and stay in forever.
It's more like a tool.
A tool to discover something new within ourselves, a catalyst for, perhaps, revelation or personal transformation. He even mentions that this silence can trigger new discernment, unique energies. But he also wisely cautions us to approach it with care.
It can be potent.
It acknowledges its potential power, yes.
Okay, so let's try and bring this together. This deep dive into Vincent Crown's quantum vibration of the day from his Campo y Atención podcast. We've really explored the significance of being fully present, even in tiny moments.
Yeah, and the inherent power that resides in those pauses, those gaps between activities.
And the potential for some profound insights that can emerge from cultivating inner silence. Doing it through that mindful, gradual process he lays out.
And if we circle back to that initial idea, that quantum vibration,
Right.
we can start to see how consistently focusing on these seemingly small shifts in awareness, these intentional moments of presence, of inner quiet, how they could indeed lead to more significant, maybe even unexpected shifts in our perspective.
And how we experience our lives overall.
Exactly.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you go about your day. Think of just one small action, maybe something you do routinely, where you can consciously try to observe that transition into silence. Perhaps the brief pause after you finish speaking, or the moment after a sound fades away. Just notice it. What might you discover in that often overlooked space?
A good question to ponder.
This has been our deep dive into the quantum vibration of the day from Vincent Crown's Tiempo y Atención. Thanks for being with us.